A little late out of the gate here, but let's paint up some Age of Sigmar. We're going to be painting up a gold guy. Yes, it's a gold guy. I don't know what it's called. Stormcaster, I think? Hammerer? Anyway, haven't done a video on painting a majority of gold lately, so did one years ago. We're going to do that again, and we're just going to go with kind of a standard out-of-the-box paint scheme here, except for, of course, using Vallejos. Now, a little bit of a long-winded story here, but we are base coating this with a mix of Vallejo Model Air Gold mixed with a little bits of Vallejo Game Color Brown ink. Now, I have to tell you a little story about the Vallejo Model Air Gold. There's two different versions of it. There's the version that they initially made, which did not look a thing like gold because in the Model Air colors it used aluminum powder, and so it had too much of a silver tint to it. After a couple years, I think about a year ago now, they reformulated it, and still doesn't look like gold too much, but it is a very nice color, and I like to play around with it. So we've mixed that with Vallejo Game Color Brown ink for our shade layer, and the other good thing about the Air Gold is it covers really well, so we can skip the brown undercoat that we would normally use. Once that is dry, we can go on to using straight Model Air Gold and just leaving that previous color in the recesses. And you know, one thing that I've heard recently was someone was asking how to highlight metallics because you cannot thin them. That's not true. If you watch this long enough, my videos long enough, you should realize you can thin metallics. The only issue is you cannot thin poor metallics because they have solid material in them. That's what gives them the shine. Cheaper paints that use large chunks like mica for the metallic sheen, you can't reduce the size of those. But when you have something with aluminum powder like with the Vallejo Model Airs, it is possible, and it's very easy to thin it out and build up layers of highlights just like we would with any other color. So we're not going over every area just once here. We're slowly building it up, I didn't go over too many times with this one, but 3 or 4 times I would say, and you can see on the palette there how thin the paint is right now. For the highlights, we're using our Model Air Gold and mixing that with Vallejo Model Air Silver. Steel also works, by the way. Those colors are virtually the exact same. I normally use steel, but whatever. So just a little bit mixed in, and you can see the paint's a little bit thicker now, and we're working on the highlights, working out towards the edges of all the plates. And you have to be careful when painting gold not to over-highlight it. When you're working with primary colors, blue, reds, greens, whatever, you can go extreme highlights like some people like to do. With gold, you can't do that because if you over-highlight it, it stops becoming gold and starts turning into silver and looks weird. Gold has some very unusual properties to it that I won't go into because I don't want to make this video too long and don't want to bore you. But yeah, keep it in that yellow, that goldish tone. Don't over highlight. And then for the second highlight, we mix in just a little bit more of the Model Air Silver, and you can see how faintly I'm putting it on here. Just the very tips of the highest possible highlight points. Again, don't want to over highlight. I don't want to put this color over everywhere because we're going to lose our gold. If you do want more contrast on your gold, you can achieve that by adding more shade instead of more highlights. And we're going to go back and add a bit more shade to this. This is a mixture of matte Vallejo matte medium mixed with a little bit of brown ink. Well, a lot of brown ink. Basically, we're creating a wash here, and instead of using straight water, I added some matte medium to it. And mediums are something I've just recently started experimenting with. which I'm kind of embarrassed to admit. I just never saw a need for them before, because I kind of learned just by using plain tap water to thin out paints. But I'm really liking the mediums because they have different uses, rather than just using water to thin out paints and make a wash. The mediums slow the drying time down, and also you can adjust the viscosity of the paint, and it kind of makes it stick more and gives you more time to play around with the wash. So rather than the wash just flowing wherever it wants to, by using the matte medium, I could toy around with it a little bit more, place it somewhere, and I could, adjust it and feather it out. And if something's not drying and it's just not looking right, I can go back and fix it, as opposed to a light spot wash like this with water, where it would dry, within a few seconds. So I'm going to be playing around with these mediums more in the future, and maybe I'll do a video exclusively to them. But yeah, I am enjoying playing around with them at this time. And then finally, to get good contrast between all the armor plates on the model, we're finishing up with a dark line mix of Vallejo black and brown ink, quite thick here, and just trying to work it into the recesses, again with a little bit of the matte medium added to it, so we can go back and clean it up if there's any mistakes. And now on to the blue. For that, we are using Vallejo Game Color Stormy Blue and Vallejo Game Color Magic Blue. And this is about 60 or 70% Stormy Blue with 30-40% of Magic Blue. You don't have to be exact every time you paint a miniature. Lots of times when I hear people painting, when it comes to mixing paints, they're afraid they're not going to get it the same way every single time. It's not a big issue, really. You just have to get close, and by the time you're done washing and highlighting it, it'll all blend together. So we're just blocking in all the areas right now. And of course, as I usually work, we're starting off with the deepest color, so this is the shade layer, and we'll work our way up through the base coat and then onto the highlights. Highlight number 1. And for that, we are simply mixing in more Magic Blue to the previous mixture. Fascinating, isn't it? For the second highlight, we are now working with straight Magic Blue, and yes, I did paint the shield separately. A little hard to reach around with the shield attached to the miniature, so we'll just glue that on at the end. And then for the final highlights, we do that by mixing in white with the Magic Blue. I might have actually skipped a step here, I honestly don't remember, so there might have been an additional step with mixing in white. But this final layer here, again, you can see the paint's a little thicker, and we're applying it just to the edges of the blue. I did want a darker blue, so if we were to go back, I would call the last mixture of Stormy Blue and Magic Blue, that would be my base color, and the first layer of Magic Blue would have been the first highlight, just to get technical there. When you're working with colors, I mean, a mixture, a lot of people work with the triad colors, this bottle's your shade, this bottle's your base coat, this bottle is your highlight. You can deviate from that. You can use a mixture of that first and second bottle, a 70-20 or 60-40 mixture as your base color, and just add more of that base color bottle in as the highlight. So just a quick little idea there, quick little tip. Don't be trapped with that from that tricolor shade base coat highlight series. It's good for, I don't want to say good for beginners, but it's a good place to start, but feel free to experiment and move away from that. For the gray metal areas, we did this super quick. Off camera, I coated it with Vallejo Game Color Steel, and now just applying a heavy wash. It's a mixture of black ink with a little bit of brown ink, and with our matte medium mixed into it. And again, matte medium I'm really enjoying. It does cling to the surface and gives a real nice, soft, transitional shade color to the metallics that you just can't get using water all on its own. For the weapon wraps, we are going with Vallejo model color magenta. Wouldn't be the color I would choose, but as I said in the beginning, trying to go for the quote-unquote traditional paint scheme, at least the one suggested by Games Workshop, and they definitely use a magenta color from their range for this, so I'm doing the same. After giving it a light dry brush of magenta mixed with a little bit of white, we then follow that up with a black wash, once again using a little bit of our matte medium mixed in. If you're looking for advice on how to paint freehand, go somewhere else, because I can't help you. I'm not good at freehand at all. People always ask me for advice, and it's like, steady hand, that's all I can tell you. The only advice I can give you is start small, draw like a little line, and then slowly work it out into the shape you're going for. I'm just trying to draw a little lightning bolt on his shoulder here, so I don't draw an outline of the lightning bolt to begin with. I just kind of do a little line and then slowly start filling it in and doing my best to keep those edges straight. I started with Iraqi sand, mainly just to get a rough outline of the lightning bolt, and then I went back with the actual color I wanted to use, which was white, and cleaned it up and left a little bit of the Iraqi sand here and there on the back end of the bolt to just give it a little bit of depth. And with that, we are done with our Stormcast Eternals Liberator. I looked it up, that's what it's actually called. Goofy name. But there you have it. Again, just trying to give you something how to paint straight out of the box using Vallejo paints rather than the recommended Games Workshop paints. Nothing too fancy here. Most of you out there should be able to follow along, I hope. And if you're looking forward to seeing more Age of Sigmar on the channel, I don't think it's happening, but we'll see what comes out. I personally will be sticking with my fantasy army, but time will tell if we get more of this or we get something else. But as always, thanks for watching. See you soon.